Hey everyone, welcome to Rated PG. I'm Paul Greenberg, and as you can probably guess by the title, I'm the host. And also, by the way, I'm doing cross promoting today for another one of the PPN shows, CRM Players. Here's cross motion. Okay, all done. So, listen, the one thing about Rated PG, which has been interesting for our network, is that it's highly experimental. We've been testing all kinds of approaches and formats, and then, basically I get to play around a lot, and that's the good part of it. And each episode, and this is actually number 4. First episode was launched at IRL, which was our in-person conference last March. I'm playing with this episode quite a bit, actually. This is a very different episode than any other one in previous times. Because, look, honestly, some things I do succeed, some things I don't like so much. This one I'm gonna love, and there's a reason for it too. Is look, some of you know me from the CRM world, obviously, and I know you've read my book, CRM at Speed of Light, and what I'm doing in this particular episode is we've got 3 authors, all of whom have either direct or adjacent connections to the B2B world. And every one of them is written in a different genre, a very different genre. In fact, we have one person who has written, and I'm not doing it justice when I call it just this nonfiction. And we'll get to that as in the first segment. Second person has written literary fiction, but this is a person who has written a ton of textbooks and other books that have been nonfiction over time. The third person has written, well, let me back up for a second. This is a person I knew he wrote, but I didn't know what he wrote. He's written poetry, and he's written really, really, let's put it this way. I write a lot of poetry too, but this guy has me beat. That's all I can say. Being a New Yorker, of course, I'm highly competitive. So we have 3 distinct genres. We're going to talk through. Basically, we're talking through literature here, and books and specifics on each book. And each of these guests has a highly accomplished life in their chosen profession. So this is different because normally at the end of a show, the final segment, we do we do some top 5 lists and things like that, which have been actually a tremendous amount of fun. But this one, I had to let the top 5 list go. I didn't want them because what I really wanted this individual to tell us about what he's been doing with poetry. So, in order to get to this, um, we're going to start now, okay? And we're gonna run each segment. We're gonna have each author come on for 15, 20 minutes, and we're gonna hear all about what they're doing. And I am honestly thrilled to death about this. It's just like this one really gets to me. So I will, typically I have like an individual studio for each segment. Don't get fooled by the fact that it looks the same as this one. Um, it isn't. Well, I'm lying. Actually, it is. But so we're going to let's go to the first segment, and we'll go to Inside Out, and I'll introduce you to our guest then. Welcome, Tara de Wow, as we and Brent call you. So I look, honestly, Tara, I am blown away by you generally,
Oh,
right? No, you know that. I mean, you know it. I mean, it's not like I've hidden it or Brent's hidden what we think of you. You think you're like one of the more amazing people we know in the business world and just generally, really. You're just a remarkable human being. But what you've done here is so different than I would have expected just because I didn't know that was a focus for you.
sure.
So can you tell people about the book you're writing? And I'll bring it up on, oops, sorry, that's my bad. Um, I'll bring it up on screen. Hang on a second. Where is it? Okay. and now let's get you back to the stage. I don't know why you got knocked off the stage, but you did. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing here? Um, and really give us some, go into some detail because I think this is not only uh, really, it's not just interesting, it's important. Okay, so can you dig in for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm gonna be controversial here and tell you what my age is, which is 44.
Okay.
And I was diagnosed with severe ADHD when I was 41, so as an adult.
Hmm.
And I started thinking about writing a book about ADHD because I felt like kind of I got hit by a train. Like, I didn't really know what to do next. And I found out some things like women are underdiagnosed at a rate of 3 to 1 because our symptoms are very different than men's symptoms. And so I started thinking, hey, I'm going to write a book about how to transition from getting your diagnosis to the next year. And as part of that, I found this really amazing publisher called Microcosm. They're based in Portland. And I actually submitted a chapter of the book to them, and they're going to publish it in the fall in a zine called Neurodivergent Pride Emotions. And one of the uh, key facets of at least my ADHD is emotional dysregulation. And that sounds scary, but it just means, luckily, it doesn't seem to happen to me at work, but it just means that my emotions kind of all rise to the surface in a jumble quickly, and I don't have as much time to take a step back. So that piece of my ADHD is written about in this zine that's coming out in November.
So when you were diagnosed, and I guess when the shock kind of started to wear off, um, what made you think I need to write a book as opposed to obviously what you're already doing, which is taking care of it, whatever you have to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, so there were a couple of reasons. The first reason is there's very few things out there. I've read 2 books that were amazing. One was a workbook by a psychiatrist who's a woman with ADHD, and the other one was a more generalized like book about women and neurodivergence. And one of the things that women do really well is called masking. So the way that my masking looked is I would be like this super highly functional, very successful person at work. And then at home with my wife and my son, I was like just a total mess, right? Like no energy or emotions left at the end of the day to do the regular things that like most adults can do. And my whole life, I really just thought I just thought I was like a bad adult, like I'm bad at adulting. I leave my keys in the door, things like leaving the stove on or, things that aren't necessarily, you know, like they could be considered dangerous in some respects, right? Another thing is like I drink like 10 cups of coffee a day because I actually need meds, but coffee it is. um, so I decided, hey, if something's out there and or not out there and it needs to be, I have to be the one to do it. I think that's the answer that a lot of us get, right? Is like, especially if you're a creative or a marketer, you're like, hey, this thing really should be out there. I'm just going to do it.
Can I interject for a second?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's not what I think most people think. I think that's what
Oh,
people like you think, right? Who really, you're one of the people, and it's again we have a history, you and me, and over
we do.
time, we're having worked together. You just believe in certain things that you need to get done, and you don't even make a big deal of it. You just get it done. Right, and that was noticeable from the get-go when we first met you, so I don't assume that's a norm, it isn't.
Well, thank you. You know, it's interesting. I think one of my favorite parts of what we do every day is just the amazing people that we meet and through networking. And I think the confidence to kind of do that kind of stuff is because I have like a vast network, and I know that there are so many amazing people that I'm connected to that will help me sort of get to the point where I want to be. And that's, you know, kind of how it kind of how it materializes for me when I get a really cool opportunity is like nurturing this network, and then it comes back to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So I noticed when I was looking over your things, you had a couple of, and I wasn't given this as a zine. I wasn't sure if that was they were co-authors or just other participants in this issue. Um, who are those folks?
Yeah, so this project is a passion project of one of the editors at Microcosm. And so he puts out a call for authors. I think it's every 6 months. So it's basically a group of people that come in and contribute an essay, and each essay is it's longish, but it's enough that you get to know that person. And actually, I was very floored because in the first number one of this zine, Temple Grandin is one of the authors.
Wow,
So I'm like, oh my God, is it possible I could be
wow.
potentially appearing in his same publication Temple Grandin appeared in? That feels really
What an
cool and
amazing
special.
look, she's one of the most amazing human beings I've ever seen in my life.
She's
Wherever
amazing. And if you haven't read her book, Visual Thinking, you
I
have to
actually
read it, and you'll get to know me a little bit better if you read that book, because I had a weird feeling that that I had a photographic memory, but not quite. And I later found out through research that you either have a photographic memory or you don't. But because of my ADHD, I'm a visual thinker. So I think in pictures.
yeah.
And so when I got diagnosed and I started reading books, I was getting all these keys and all these light bulbs and puzzle pieces that I've been missing my whole life. And that is one of them from reading her book, is that I'm a visual thinker. So highly recommend it.
I will read the book. I, of course, obviously saw the movie with that
Yes.
was done on her, which also, by the way, was a remarkable movie too. But
So good.
I so so how do you once you've actually once this is published, what's the next step?
So once this is published, I am in talks about the full book right now. So fingers crossed.
Oh, you
And trying to, you know, structure it in a way that's easy to follow, because I think like one of the like everything with having ADHD is a double-edged sword, right? I have like all these challenges, but then all these opportunities and like creativity and things like that. So one of my sort of traits is like non-linear storytelling.
yes.
So I kind of like jump around. So this has been a really cool exercise in linear storytelling for me. And I think it's going to make me a better writer overall. So the next step is what once this comes out, I'm continuously working on the full book, but you know, I'm a wife and a mom outside of work. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to get my passion projects off the ground, but it just requires a lot of patience. And this publisher's been so patient with me.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting form of writing which may help somewhat. This
Yeah,
is something
please.
I learned so many, many years ago. I was associated with, among aside from my radical political activity, I was also associated with the Surrealist group, which was
Oh,
in the US, right? It was an international organization, but the US branch was not big. It was actually centered out of Barbara's bookstore in Chicago, and
oh,
the two people who were kind of the they were the heads of it, but they were more titular heads of it, were Franklin and Penelope Rosemont. I remember this from many years ago. And so I was a hardcore advocate of surrealism. I love surrealism. I still do as an art form and as a literary form too, interestingly enough. and also politically, Andre Breton and some of the leading surrealists were aligned with my thinking because I was a Marxist at the time. So I read everything about surrealism. I went. Magritte was my god. I didn't like Salvador Dali because he was on the wrong side of politics. Not that
Word.
he was a bad
Yes.
artist, right?
Yes.
But I learned a method of writing which I actually use to this
Okay.
day called automatic writing. And it's really interesting, and I think in your specific approach, it might be usable. So the idea is this: you have an idea about writing something, whatever that might be, and you literally just sit down and you write it. Okay, that doesn't mean you don't do your research and anything like that. You do all that, but and if it's fiction, you don't necessarily, you've already formulated a little something, but you just write. Okay, and then when you're done, the typical thing people do will be to start editing what they wrote, right?
Yes.
Or they'll get an editor to edit what they wrote. Surrealist automatic writing says don't do that. What it says is literally write over it completely. Just write it again, right on, in effect, right on top of it, and keep doing that. And what you end up with, and it absolutely works, is a very vivid. You have a clear voice and a very vivid image of what you're writing. And the reason being, because what the surrealist is saying, look, you might think you're just writing from scratch, but you're not. You already wrote the first part. That's still here,
Yeah.
right? It's just not, it's on paper, so to speak, and still here. When you're writing the second part, that didn't disappear, and you're still writing from there. So effectively, you're not editing the document, you're editing over the document, right? But
Yeah.
effectively. But what comes out is so much better because there's no constraint to the first draft. You're right.
Yes.
There's no constraint at all. You just, in effect, you might as well put it in, if you have real paper, piece of paper, put it on top, write over it again, another one on top, write over it again. So until you're happy with what your result is.
I'm definitely gonna try this. I'm like one of those, have you heard the phrase "kill your darlings"?
No, no.
So kill your darlings is like a writer's technique where, when you write something, sometimes you become attached to a phrase or an idea that you
Yeah,
have written. You're like, I am brilliant. This has to stay. I love it. But it really doesn't fit in what you're trying to talk
right.
about. And you have to kind of be merciless and kill it, right? You got to kill all your darlings. Like if you feel too attached to something that you've just written, that's a red flag. So I feel like that's like sort of in the vein of automatic writing, right? Because you can't be precious and like feel attached to that first draft. You have to write over it, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's very similar. It really is. I mean, and once you said, now you explain "Kill Your Darlings." I mean, I've done that. I actually once, the reason I wrote my last book, "The Commonwealth of Self-Interest," luckily it was appropriate, was because I loved the title, right? Not because I wanted to write the book, but I just loved that phrase. I've been holding it for something for 10 years,
Yeah.
right? I just loved it. But luckily, it actually was the right title for the book, so I didn't have to kill it. But I totally get being attached. I mean,
Yeah.
all the time you get attached to things that make you feel like, oh, that was clever of me.
Yeah, totally. And then actually I found that sometimes killing it just frees you up.
Hmm.
Just like frees the whole page up. You were like holding yourself back with your darling.
Well, that's the funny thing is, in effect, what automatic writing is doing is kind of, it's not killing your darling, it's telling your darling, uh, I don't even know how to put this, but it's like you're effectively transforming your darling
Yes.
completely every
Yes.
time, but it's still your darling. It's just
Yes.
making it work, making your darling work, right? So I actually love that, killing your darling. So
I'm definitely gonna do it. I'm gonna do the automatic writing.
you definitely, you know what? When you've done it, when you've gotten used to it, does take a little work. It's like you got to get used to it. It's not, it sounds pretty easy, but it's really not at
Yeah.
all. It took me probably before I felt really comfortable using the approach, took me nearly a year, really. It just, oh yeah, well,
Oh,
because,
wow.
well, keep in mind, I guess it goes to it. I was trained in journalism and English at Northwestern, right? So I
Yeah.
came out with a mindset that was very much traditional editorial, in terms of my writing. too. So I had to break that, right?
Yeah. I was a journalism minor, and I have to say it really influenced the way that I write. Like, I cannot write well, I shouldn't say that. That's not a very growth mindset. I've not been able to write fiction. I'm really passionate nonfiction reader and writer, and for some reason, I have to feel connected to the material, and I have a hard time just feeling connected to something I wrote that isn't true. I don't know why. It's
Have you ever read fiction where you get, or watched even TV, let's say, where you get connected to a character, not necessarily the story per se, but the character?
Yeah, for sure. And I think like part of that is like, these fiction authors, they've created a whole world for these characters, right? And so I think they probably feel like it is real in some respects.
Well, actually, our next guest is what he's written is. I'm going to let him tell you, but I'm going to call it, just for the sake of it right now, literary fiction, right?
Okay,
Meaning, and to me, there's a difference between potboilers and literary fiction, even if they're the same genre, right? Meaning,
sure.
literary fiction means there's quality to the writing as well
Yeah.
as, and the development as well. They're not just, you know, I can get that in 10 other authors or 20 other authors who the voice of the actual author is clear in the writing. And that's the thing with you, though, is that one of the things I know about you, even without, forget the book, is you have an exceptionally clear individual humanity, I guess is the best way to put it. And it's exceptionally clear. I mean, if I was not, if I was listening to 10 people who I couldn't see at all, and their voices, the actual voice was, you know, normalized to the same, I'd still know it was you.
Paul, what a compliment.
Well,
I'm gonna come back to this show as much as
well,
possible.
actually, one of the things I'm going to suggest, and before we uh, close, is when you've done automatic writing, let me know, and
Yes.
we'll bring you on to talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
And then,
I'm gonna ask you to email me with some prompts and some
yeah.
topics that you want to hear about.
Oh, no, no, no. Keep in mind one thing with this show, and it's designed this way, to be honest, is whoever's on, I have things I want to talk about, but as if we end up being derailed completely and talking about something that the guest wants to talk about entirely, so be it. That's awesome to me.
I mean, that's why it's so great to come talk to you all the time.
Well, it's mutual. I mean, again, you're a member of the community in a way that transcends. And let's say, look, you work for a vendor, you work for Pegasystems, which is a fantastically interesting and kind of unique vendor in its own right. But we don't see you as you work for Pegasystems. We see you as member of our community who is beloved, and you
Uh,
really are. So,
I feel the same way about you guys, and I love being part of this community. So thank you
well,
so much for having me.
it's as always a pleasure. So we will expect to see you, or I will, I should say, because it's
Yes.
this show. But I will expect to see you back on this show, and of course, you'll be on CRM Players for a Pega thing at some point.
Yes, you got it.
All
Any
right, a big hug.
big hugs, big
Love
hugs.
you. Mwah.
Love you, sending you so much love. And next time I want to talk to you about the Knicks because we still haven't talked about that yet.
Oh, you're on. Definitely, you are definitely on.
Yep.
Mwah.
Okay. Bye, Paul.
Bye. See what I mean about her? She is like amazing. I am just. I've Brent and I met her several years ago, and I was entranced from the second I met her because she's such a vibrant human. And by the way, which she didn't really say, although she kind of indicated it, and we didn't really talk about it either. But she is, as she mentioned, she drinks 10 cups of coffee a day. She doesn't just drink coffee; she drinks like superb coffee. She is a expert in coffee, connoisseur of coffee. In fact, my favorite coffee in the world is thanks to her from Cafe Vita, Queen City. She sent me a bag of it, and it is off the charts, incredible. And her recommendations are really, really good. Highly recommend it. Queen. I even sent a bag of that to Brian Solis, who loves coffee too, and he said, "I don't understand what I've been drinking all these years." He said, "I should just be drinking this." So that's Tara, right? So now we move to the next segment, and here's the interesting thing: the gentleman who we're going to speak with, I've known since I started my career. And we'll get into a little bit of that when we get on. But he's another. I mean, this is the coolest thing about this episode. That three utterly remarkable, but very different, but utterly remarkable people. I mean, people who mean something in every way imaginable, not just to me, but to a lot of people out there, and that's powerful to me. Again, I'm so enthusiastic about this show, and then this episode of this show. There's other episodes I've enjoyed them. I enjoy them, but something I got to go do it. This is the one I've been just waiting to do. All right, so now we're going to move to Studio C, and remember, as I said, I'm lying, but it's not. It's not really a separate studio, but make believe it is. All right, here we go. Welcome, Dr. Jeff Tanner. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, Paul. Thank you so much for having me.
Is that a real background or is that a green screen? That's like...
This is a real background.
Damn.
Our house, this part of the house was built in 1825 and on the historic registry. And they say in this room that there's, on the original documents, that there's a Victorian era frieze in this room, and it has to be behind the bookshelf because I don't see it in the room. But yeah, this is all. This is my my office.
That is like it's just it's just like it's almost best way to put it. It's almost like majestic, right? It's just it is. It's like that. Those shelves are phenomenal, and there are a lot of them, right? So but I can see you have books and photos and number of there looks to be bottles on the left and glasses.
Yeah, there's
you're right. You're right. In my left.
Yeah, those are Kentucky Derby glasses from a long time ago. My bar is in here, so I've got some cocktail glasses to martini glasses and shot glasses and so on.
That is an author's setup, man.
Heck yeah. Okay. Heck yeah.
So, are you drinking? Here's my key question, and you'll know why I'm asking it, and so will the audience soon. Do you drink? What is it? Old Forester 1820. I mean 1920.
If given the opportunity.
Okay, I'll be sending you a bottle then. The reason I'm saying that is that's Old Forester has styles of bourbon, and what the 1920 is the immediate Prohibition era, pre-Prohibition era, right before it, bourbon, and the exact style that they actually made it. And it's look, I'm a rye Manhattan guy on the rocks.
Yeah,
I'm a rye Manhattan, but this is one of the very few. Even though most people like drinking Manhattans with bourbon, I'm classic, man, rye. However, this is one of the few bourbons I will drink in a Manhattan without hesitation.
So I'm a rye Manhattan guy too, but being a horseman, I get a lot of bourbons. So,
yeah,
so that's.
I'll send you a bottle of this one, okay? And then you put it in a Manhattan and tell me what you think. All right. So I met you right at the beginning of my career when you were at Baylor. I think you were tenured. You were tenured then, and you had what to be one of the very few, if not the only at the time, maybe the very few ever programs that had a master's with CRM, which blew me away. And then I started learning all about you, and you kept blowing me away. And then I found out you own horses, and my favorite horse of all time, including Seabiscuit and War Admiral, Duncan Theodore, was your horse. Oh, this
I
is
actually have his picture in my office, and you're in this picture, but you're no more than just a couple of eyeglasses behind Bill, I think.
yeah, I can see it a little. I can see an
Yeah.
edge, but not that horse is still my horse hero of all time. I love that horse. For those of you who don't know, Duncan Theodore was owned by Jeff. He was a 20-1 shot at a race that we went to. It was me, Jeff, and Bruce Colbert went to a race. It was a 20-1 shot. I put down, I think, $10 or something like that on him, and he won. And that's not the part that got me though. And Jeff knows the story because I've said it a million times to him, because every time I see him, I say it. But we went back to the stable afterwards. That picture actually is probably then. And I saw that this horse knew that he had won the race. And he was so proud. And you could see it. I mean, it's not like you could feel it as well as see it, really. I guess that was it. All of a sudden, you realize these horses are far more complicated than you would ever expect, because they have really complex sets of emotions there, and they know them, and they actually communicate them incredibly well. I was never so blown away by what I saw that day by not even close to any other horse. And now what? You're the head of the Virginia Racing Commission, as well as a
Right.
author. So let's talk this. So you have written multiple books, including the best-selling textbook on sales of all time. Yet you now are a I'm going to leave it where I said it, and I'll let you go into the details. You are now the author of a successful work of literary fiction, and I'm calling it literary because of the quality of the writing. That's how I make the distinction, as I mentioned in the beginning
Right.
of the first segment. Can you talk about it? This is, and as soon as you mention the name, I will bring up the picture.
It is. It's called The King's Collar, and good picture. Thank you, Paul. And the the book, I appreciate you calling it successful. It's only been out a month, so the jury's still out, but it's doing really well. We're getting a lot of attention. Um, Sales are looking good. So early sales, early reviews are outstanding.
Mhm.
I couldn't be more thrilled.
So
So it's
talk about the genre a bit, because it actually, when we were talking about it a little more detail yesterday, it actually is an interesting combination of things, right? That's the thing that's really fascinating.
Yeah, a lot of readers, particularly early beta readers, told me that they thought it was like the Maltese Falcon meets The Sting, or the Maltese Falcon meets Indiana Jones.
Really?
And from a plot perspective, it definitely is. It's an historical mystery novel, and I call it a novel because it's character driven, not plot driven. But the plot is does have those Maltese Falcon, Sting, the movie, not the performer,
Yeah.
kind of tones to it. But there's some real strong themes in the character's development of redemption and forming an identity, having grown up under an abusive, tyrannical father, and suddenly being freed by that, and kind of wandering through Boston in 1929, Prohibition.
So how does that? It's interesting because it's not easy, and I know this, more aspiringly, I guess, if since I haven't written fiction and really want to, but no, I never will. Right? Well, I'm going to just live through you from here on when it comes to
Yeah,
fiction,
thank you,
because
Paul.
you're literally writing the kind of thing I would want to write. So I would also maybe science fiction too,
Right.
not fantasy though, science fiction. So but you're actually combining things that are quite difficult to combine effectively because, and we had a little bit of a discussion yesterday, character driven versus plot driven. But one way or the other, you're actually doing that. Now, that said, there's a school of thought that I was thinking about after we spoke that Jeff Gomez, who was a guest on multiple of our shows, who's the creator of the multiverse, literally.
Right.
He has an idea of story worlds. And so that the character and the plot, so to speak, are deeply intertwined in a way that they effectively play off each other, I guess is the best way. Story is obviously impacted by character is impacted by story, but even in a much more profound sense than I just made it. Can you talk to the actual story and the characters a bit and how that kind of works?
So don't forget setting too.
Right.
Setting is really, really important because that provides the context for the story and for the character. And in this case, it's set in Boston. I was privileged to take a backstage tour of the Mariners Museum in Newport News, Virginia. And the fellow who was showing me around said, this was built during the Prohibition to keep the ship workers busy by the owner of the shipyard here. And they didn't know anything about museums, so they just started acquiring stuff. They sent out these agents to acquire stuff. And I thought,
wow.
Oh, wouldn't that be a cool story? And how does one become an agent? And this is sort of the origin story of an agent, an acquisition agent, who unintentionally, accidentally becomes a member of one of the biggest mobs in Boston, run by Charles King Solomon, a real mobster,
Right.
and starts looking for these artifacts, the first of which, of course, is the King's Collar, which is not a Mariner. So it wouldn't go in that museum, and it's an Egyptian artifact. But you got to get there somehow, right? So that's kind of how it all came about.
So have you ever read what's her name? The one who does Stephanie Plum. That's her name.
Oh, yeah.
Actually. The author,
Yeah.
right? So she does this Gabriella Jones, who's a artifact recovery agent for, she'll she works on her own. So I read those books and I actually really enjoy them. I'm blocked her. What was her original character? Her like one that kind of made her career. She had like 25 books of this. I can't think of her name.
I can't either. But I liked reading Stephanie Plum as well. She was good.
I'm just finishing her most recent Gabriella Jones thing, so I can see by having read that right now. I obviously I did see an early, as you call it, beta. I'm not used to calling manuscripts beta, but I get the idea. Early draft of your book, and it's very different, and it's also I'll call it more. It's easy to read, but very much more complex than what she does. What she does is, pretty cut and dried. It's basically Indiana Jones meets Indiana Jones, really. It's not anything more than that. But in your case, it's obviously much richer, I guess, is the environment itself. So when you're thinking about the environment you're going to present in a book, or a work of fiction, which is basically historically real, but the actual presentation environments out of here, right? How do you do that?
Well, I have been a fan of old movies, old radio shows, particularly detective shows. I love Johnny Dollar, for example, the man with the action-packed expense account, and that sort of gives you kind of the world. But then there's Boston itself, right? So. A lot of people think the history of Boston stopped when we won the Revolutionary War, or maybe the War of 1812, but it's actually got a much deeper and layered history. And so I spent a lot of time walking the streets in Boston, the same streets that Charlie would have walked 100 100 years ago, and with a stopwatch to make sure that I knew how long it took to get from the North End to the theater district, and so on and so forth. And then you just start. So then I started reading things like Joey Bananas' autobiography. He was the head of the Castellammarese War in New York, the winner of that gangster war, and the Don for 50 years. Read that biography, a biography of Joseph Kennedy, a lot of other stuff, and you just start getting deep sense of the context. And I heard you talk about automatic writing earlier. A lot of what I do writing wise is it's up here, and I write, rewrite, and rewrite and rewrite before I actually ever put it on paper. And so I knew that I was onto something when I called my wife Karen by a character's name. So I also kind of got in a little bit of trouble.
I was going to say, did she appreciate that? That's amazing. So you were doing kind of nonverbal automatic writing, really?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I write it and rewrite it and rewrite it.
Yeah, and you just keep writing over it. Again, you're writing over. You're not editing it, right? It's a different universe. I'll tell you what, I will be a proponent of that to the day I go, man, because when I wrote Serum Speed of Light, I wrote like that, right? I mean, I would just write something. That's why oddly, every time I wrote Serum Speed of Light's new edition, I didn't update any books. I wrote a new book, but I was obviously drawing on what they'd written, right? Clearly, because it was there.
But you and I talked about that. I mean, I'm now on the 12th edition of the sales textbook, and my publisher would kill me if I started over. I mean, it's just, it's just not allowed. I also, Paul, I don't know if you know this, but I also wrote, and hosted a 1-minute radio show that appeared or was listened to, heard daily on NPR for over 2 years.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so, explaining something like a yield curve in 135 words to 165 words, you've got to be one hell of an editor. You've got to be able to get it so tight and have it make sense. And so I already had pretty good editing skills, but the thing about
those are actually simplification skills, really, right? You know what I mean? Like, how to take something totally dense idea and simplify it so when people hear it in 165 words, they get it.
Well, the other thing, though, is that the more you do that, the better you get at getting it right the first time.
Right.
So, an automatic writing process would just scare the pants off somebody who didn't write a lot already.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, if you're already writing and in that habit of writing,
well, it's hard. I mean, it's also automatic writing is actually hard until you finally. Well, yeah, that's it. But it's just, because the mindset's just different, right? Than what you originally thought. Again, I do not regret a minute of my time at Northwestern learning. It was the reason I write now, is that, right? Or wrote now, I should say. I used to write. I don't write that much anymore. More video and audio, obviously.
Sure.
But it was the reason I wrote. And my best professor ever was this guy, Alfred Ames, and he was the editorial director of the political enemy newspaper of people like me. It was the Chicago Tribune, right? He was literally the editorial director of Chicago Tribune. I love that guy. He was the greatest teacher I had in journalism because he taught me he didn't just teach me the crap that you had to know then, which is the who, what, why, when, how, and where stuff. Right. But he taught me how to write, in the sense that how to utilize my capabilities, my mind, and the experience, as limited as it may have been when I was young, I had to express it. How to express it, and he wouldn't let me do worse. And he knew what I was. I mean, he would be the guy authorizing the editorials that hated what I was doing, right? So but I adored that man. I absolutely adored him. He was actually a very kind, nice guy too. But
and with a lot of integrity too. It sounds like
oh
as
yeah,
well.
no, he was pretty amazing. But automatic writing kind of broke some of that mold too, right? So, in your case, everyone has different styles. It's a technique. That's all it is. So and different voices. Your voice has always been clear. I've got. I don't think I have the last two or three editions, but I have two or three. I probably have up to edition 8 maybe of your. I don't know what the numbers are, but I have 3 editions of your sales text in my office. It's one I did a big dump of books, but I kept yours, right?
Well, thank
Oh, no, that wasn't like even a question. It was not like I was which pile. It
you.
wasn't like that. Yours was I'm keeping it, period. And the interesting thing though, in your writing in those 3 editions is they may not be brand new books, but there's an enormous amount of updated material in it,
I
in
think
each one.
Yeah, I think the thing I like about that process the most is all the sidebars are brand new,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of fun to write. But one of the things about my writing is I'm not an outliner, and when writing a mystery, it's to me, if I'm not surprising, if the characters aren't surprising me, then I'm not surprising the reader. So I write more organically. As you know, so I right now I'm working on one. We talked about a plot point yesterday. I've got that resolved, but it's unusual in this one that I know who did it and I know why they did it, and I'm only about 15,000 words into an 80,000 word book. But there's a lot of stuff I don't know yet. There's got to be a twisty path to get there, and I'm not even sure I know how the detectives are going to figure it out.
See,
So
so you're writing in effect in real life time, not real life, but literary fiction lifetime.
mhm,
Well,
mhm.
that's actually I know I've read a lot of people like some of this people, not Stephanie Plum in particular, but people like that. And I've read like, what's that guy who does uh, Jim Chi character?
Yeah, Tony Hillman.
Tony, Tony, he's
His
very,
daughter's writing for has taken it over since his death, and she's doing a fabulous job.
yeah. Well, I've read all of the books and I've even watched the TV series
Yeah,
at this point because
Darkwing.
it's actually well done, And
Very well
but the
done.
interesting thing is, I remember when I guess when he was alive, I saw an interview with him, and he knows every point before he really started the book. He knew everything. So you have the exact opposite in style, right? And approach. But look how good it is, and look how so. One final thing, well, two final things, I guess. First final thing is you have a number of other series you're working on too. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about those? And then the second and final thing will be how do people get the book?
So I've got two other series that I'm working on. One is a contemporary mystery series. It's the one that I'm working on that right this minute. I worked on it up until this show. And the first in that series, it's a cozy mystery, meaning there's very little foul language. There's, think Miss Marple. Miss Marple's a
Yeah,
perfect
gotcha.
cozy mystery. The main characters are a retired Marine police, a military policeman who became a civilian policeman and then got kicked off the force for protecting his partner in a way that was indefensible. And then his best friend from high school, who is female and widowed, and they're both about mid-60s.
Okay.
And they've been close friends their entire adult life since they were 15 or 16 in high school. Never
Wow.
romantically,
Right.
just very close friends. And she has a date with a man in the condo complex. She goes over to get him and finds him lying on the floor with a knife in his chest, and she realizes it's her knife.
Oh, wow.
So that's that story, the first in that series. It's called Knife to Meet You.
Is that one of those books that you wrote the book because you loved the title in advance?
No, the title, I called it something. I had a struggle with the title for the longest time. But you'll get a kick out of this, Paul. The victim was a con man, it turns out, and his aliases were always various brands of bourbon.
I do like that. Bland, John Bland.
Yeah. So the other one is a love story, and it is set at the track, Lone Star Park and Louisiana Downs, and it's about a woman trainer, and it's based on a real person who lives in a camper at the track, and she's facing having to leave racing because she can't take care of her kids, and it's just not working out for her. And a guy whose wife is a sociopathic narcissist and has thrown him out and stolen all his money, and he just ends up at the track, drifts in, hangs around, and but he's a tech wizard, and so totally doesn't know anything about horses. All of the horses in that book are horses that I've owned, either bred and raced them, or bought and raced them, or bred and they weren't good enough to race, including Thunken Theodore.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Let's see, that's I would buy the book because you wrote it, but that makes it even absolute guarantee. I'll promote the book heavily.
Well, that second feature Thunken as the primary horse. So
how could he not be?
On my calendar.
How could he not be? So how do people get your books?
So you can order them through any of your favorite bookstores, including bookstore.org. Bookstore.org supports independent bookstores. You don't pay any extra, but the money goes to an independent bookstore. You can order from me. You got to pay from shipping, but I'm happy to autograph it for you. And that's at my website, authorjefftanner.com.
Perfect.
And Amazon, of course, carries it.
When you're ready with the next book, same series, fine. When you're ready with the next book, when it's coming out, be prepared to come back on.
December 8th. It comes out December 8th.
Okay, well then December, be prepared to come back on in December, because we're going to be talking about it. Oh no, one of the things that came to my mind, because again, I'm really trying different things on the show, but the trio of you coming on, you authors who are people I also really love and respect, this is going to be my favorite always. And I already decided this is going to be a regular thing.
Good.
So, and where I want to bring all of you on as you evolve in your work.
I would love to be on a segment with Tara. She's fabulous. I just really enjoyed meeting her in her segment.
I'll also see about we'll do one where what we could do, actually thinking out loud here, but have a panel literally. The next time we have all three of you on the whole show, right, together, just having a conversation. Okay, so plan on that. Okay, plan on that one. That's it. We're going to do it.
Paul, all right, sir. Love you, pal.
I love you right back, and send my love to Karen too, please.
And to Yvonne.
Right back. All right, Jeff.
Take care.
See you soon. All right. So now we're going to our closing segment, and this one is going to be killer. I can promise you that. I mean, we'll get into details when we get to it, and names and poetry, and I am really excited about this. And this is a person I didn't really know was a poet, but I found out, and we'll get to it. But let's I'm going to Studio D. I'm not going to repeat what I said already. You know I'm lying, so we'll leave it as a lie. And we'll see you in a minute, or a few seconds. Hey, Paul Sweeney, welcome to Rated PG, my friend. How are you?
How you doing? Very well, thank you.
What time is it? You're in Ireland, so what time?
I'm in Ireland. It's just coming on to 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, so it's early enough. This is actually a good time because typically when we have people on from Europe on different players, it's like almost 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, usually about their time, and it's getting a little late, and I always feel a little bad. But this one, I don't feel bad about
No,
at
all
all.
good. All good.
So I've known Paul Sweeney, what? I've probably known you 15 years at
Oh
least.
yeah, at least, yeah.
At least.
At
And
least, yeah.
you've always been this innovator in the tech world. I mean, a true innovator too. And, you were talking conversational long before anyone else was, really. I mean, I'd say you and maybe Mitch Lieberman were the only two.
I'd
that
say
were
Dan
really,
Miller too.
and Dan. Yes. How could I forget Dan? That's crazy. So the three of you. And you were tied. What was the name of the company before it was WebIO?
Webio.
Yeah. Wasn't there a company name before that?
There was a different company, VoiceAge.
Oh, that's right. It started with, that's when I met you, though, at VoiceAge, right? And then you went to Webio. And recently, I saw he had left Webio, and I thought, oh, let me reach out to him and see what's going on. I mean, he's looking, da, 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 da. And I find out in the course of this that no, he's really going to devote time to his poetry. And
Right.
my first thought was, your poetry? I didn't have a clue you were a poet. So can you talk about that, and also about when you even got involved or interested in the genre to begin with?
Sure. So first of all, Webio was acquired, so it was a good, successful exit. Everyone's happy, and that's always a good outcome. And that gives you some time to, explore things that you might have wanted to explore before. I've been involved in poetry for maybe 30 years now,
Wow.
one way or the other. And that's writing pretty much all along that way too. I've been the founder of a poetry festival here in Ireland that ran for nearly 20 years, bringing poets from all over the world to Limerick to do readings and workshops and stuff like that. We had some pretty amazing American poets over, by the way. I'll come back to that. So I've also been a part of a kind of a working group, like a kind of 4 poets that were working together in my area. They're all published poets, all kind of national, names. And it would be sharing the work with one another, getting advice, getting mentorship from each other, particularly me receiving the mentorship from the others. So there's a very supportive kind of community of people here. And there's also there was, I don't know how, I think it is still there, but I want to say it was a kind of a culture that supports poetry too, in that it's something that is not that strange. It's not that weird. Everyone knows W.B. Yeats. Everyone knows James Joyce. It's, you tend to support the winning team, and, literature is a winning team in Ireland. So you get some support that way. And so it was never something that was kind of a weird thing to step into, is kind of what I'm saying about that. So I guess my journey was kind of a strange one, in that I started out in a rock band back in high school, and I was invited into that. It wasn't a dream to be in a rock band. Someone said, "Hey, you have a good voice. Why don't you come and sing?" And so I was, doing rehearsals and learning how to learn songs, learning how to sing songs, and then learning how to write songs. And when I got into the writing of songs, I went, "Oh, this is kind of interesting." And I got more caught up in the lyrics. The lyrics was the thing. And then a friend of mine asked me to go busking with him, and then I had to learn all the Bob Dylan songs, right? So I had to learn Bob Dylan, Neil Young, all the busking favorites.
Yeah.
But of course, if you learn Bob Dylan, you're also learning how words work and how songs work, and then you have to be able to speak them, you have to be able to sing them. And so from there, it was kind of into poetry proper. Then it was like, okay, I was pretty much taken with, as young men have been for 100 years, taken with T.S. Eliot. So over, I think, 6 years, I had 3 books in my pocket. That's it. I had the selected T.S. Eliot, the selected W.B. Yeats, and the selected Wallace Stevens, the American poet, in my pocket. And I would just learn those poems. I would just learn them off. And try and figure out what was going on. And then from there, you kind of go, I'm not getting it. I don't understand. Particularly Wallace Stevens is.
Yeah.
I mean, Wallace Stevens is incredibly difficult to understand. You can love him, but to understand him is really kind of difficult. Similar with T.S. Eliot, you know, you can read him, but you don't really know what's going on either, but you're entranced. It's kind of like magic. So that brings you into being a kind of an autodidact. You've got to figure out how these things are working. So you just become a self-propelling learning machine after that, and you have to figure out how everything works yourself. So that's how I got into it. I just kept going. I think the saying is, you'd be surprised what you can achieve.
So did you find your poetic voice early, or did it take you years that you sort of tested out a whole bunch of different things? I mean, what did you do?
I would still struggle to say I have a poetic voice. And I think there's a kind of a curse with poets finding a poetic voice, because they go, oh, that's my poetic voice. And it's a trap, because now you can't get out of it. Now you've got to break your own style. Whereas I read a book by Roland Barthes back in my early days again, and he had this thing called La Couture Blanche, which is the blank writing, right? All writing is a style. All writing gestures towards some other style. There is no true voice. It's kind of fake. To think that you found your voice is kind of fake. You haven't. You found a style, and so every poet ends up having to break their own style as well. So I've never bought the thing of you find your true voice. Like, I think you craft something and you make something, and then you just.
Yeah, that's it. You know, that's a really interesting comment. I don't know that I agree with it totally, but I get where it's coming from, because in my case, I'll put it this way. Many years when I wrote Serum of Speed of Light, there was a review once from this young man. I think he was probably a student. And this was the 800-page fourth edition, right? So it was huge, obviously. And he said in this thing, I read the book from cover to cover. It was like having a conversation with Paul. I've never talked to this guy. I don't even know anything about him, but he knew what a conversation with me would be like by reading the book. That's a voice. That's my voice. Okay. That said, what I absolutely do agree with is breaking the style. Absolutely agree with that. In fact, you know, I'm not like you. You're basically, I know you won't characterize yourself this way, but I'm going to. You're a genuine professional poet, right? I'm an amateur who's not bad, but I varied. My styles were just they ranged from the simplest lyric, you know, like limerick, not limerick, limerick kind of style, to, you know, imitation of, say, Jonathan Swift or something like that, and Shakespearean sonnets, trying to use, you know, the English of Shakespeare, but not accurately, to just freestyle. To I had one poem where I read this poem by Shelley, didn't like what he was saying, so I injected myself in the dialogue with him, right, with Shelley talking to him. Throughout the poem, because it was just all across the board. So can you elaborate on your style breaking?
I think if you read a lot, like if you just read a lot, I think what happens is you get attracted to something. And you know, the general advice has always been, if you want to learn how to write, learn how to read. So really a good, like a writer that's attracting you, a book that's attracting you, really it's something in that book and that style and what they're saying, and in that frame of mind and that intellect or that emotional, spiritual, whatever the frame is attracting you to it. And so really good, like, just to go back to the beginning, T.S. Eliot, Yeats, Wallace Stevens, they all kind of teach you how to read them, and you really don't know what you're getting all the time straight up. So you wouldn't be able to look at that and go, man, I kind of don't like that. It's like there's something will draw you to it, and then you kind of steer into it, and then you learn what it's trying to teach you, and then probably in the best possible situation, something changes in you. So you're changed having read the good stuff, and now you're different. And now maybe you'll go back to the book and back to the book and back to the book, and maybe you're then drawn to the next thing. So rather than kind of thinking about it as finding your own style, what you do is you find out the thing that you really want to get to. Not imitate completely, but there's something about it. Maybe it's what it's concerned about. Maybe it's the way it says it. Maybe it's the angle at which it comes into its subject. But something about it just enters your toolkit, and then you'll talk about something. And I had a poem recently that I worked really hard on, and I gave it to one of my collaborator mentors, and I worked really hard on this, right? And I said, look, this is like a pair of jeans that I put into the dryer here. It's going around, but it's making this clunking noise, and I don't know where the clunking noise is coming from, right? I can't find it, right? Is it just not serious enough? Is it not too pro-faced? What is it? Something's wrong with this. I can feel it. And he came back to me, and he said, and it was like 12, was it 10 stanzas long, like 14, 15, 16 lines each stanza. And he said, all of this is about grief. He says, it's all grief. And it's grief for yourself, grief for society, grief for the planet we're living on, and the climate that we're having to deal with. But it's all grief. That's the common thread. And I went, of course. So someone comes back and it give you some steering, and you go, right, that helps me reframe everything. And I'm in the middle of redrafting that thing. And I'll tell you, from the first like 16 line stanza, there's 2 lines that survive the redraft, right? 2 lines, because you've got to be ruthless about where you're going with that thing. But now I have a thing I'm heading for. Now, I didn't know that that's what it was about when I was writing it. I didn't know that that's what it was about. He comes back and he goes, it's lost. He knew there's something in there. That's the destination. That's the thing that you're trying to write about. And once that's made clear to you, then you can kind of structure it a little better to get there, and express it or surface it or not surface it, as the case might be.
Do you have, so a couple of questions before we close the show. First one is, do you have, is there like a subject that draws you somewhere, or are you more, and I don't mean the word, the way I'm using this,
Sure.
It's improper, but spontaneous, meaning, for example, you didn't know the theme of your, the one that you're redrafting now, but you wrote it regardless.
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I'm saying spontaneous. I mean, there's no necessarily big idea in mind, but you wrote it from organically, I'll call it.
I think that there's for this particular one, there was a set of stanzas that everyone I showed it to was really happy with. They thought it was beautiful and lovely, right? And I just kind of, okay, but everyone likes, mostly people to like what they've written, right? I kind of get a little suspicious of it. Right. But what it ended up being is, the way I just thought of it this week, actually, just clarified for me, was in painting, I know a painter will sometimes do a cartoon. The cartoon is the drawing underneath the painting. It's the shape of it. And so what this was like the emotional cartoon of it. It was the shape of the emotions, the shape of where it was going. What it was missing was the structure and the objects. It was missing the things that you could relate to in your life, that you could go, that's a kettle, that's a cup, that's a chair, the material world that gives you the kind of metaphors that would mean something to you. Right. So the first draft, like, it turned out some lovely language, but actually the thing that it really was about was the emotional truth. but you don't like an emotional truth put in front of you is pretty ugly, and not really good art. And I think it was Yeats who said, it's a cold eye that you need to have on things, right? And so a couple of links, because I love links, connections. So W.B. Yeats was a great advocate for automatic writing, and his wife George at the time, she was the vessel. Like the spirits spoke through her. Funny enough, the spirits wanted him to do a lot of the things that she wanted to do, but it turned out that it was a great release and a generative capacity for him. So the idea of it being a completely fluent automatic process, like I think that's almost like an aperture. So if you get really good at just writing whatever comes into your mind, and I think that there's a kind of a letting go and letting go and letting go that's wider and wider and wider. That's a kind of a practice. And there's also a practice where you don't know what word is coming next.
Right.
Like as you're writing at the tip of the pen, you actually don't know what the next word is. You don't know what the metaphor is going to be. You haven't thought it out. And so you're kind of following your pen. And the general advice is follow your pen, definitely, but then edit, right? So to generate, you follow your pen, but then you have to have the tools and skills to edit.
So I don't know if you can do this, but I would love to close the show if you could have something that you could read for people that you've written.
Sure, because there's a thing I'm trying to get with poetry readings are notorious, man. Everyone gets up and wants it's their last chance to speak their work, but I love taking a piece of work from someone else and reading it. I've got 3 books that I just wanted to, because not everyone here will have, a background in American poetry. So I wanted to bring 3 American poets who are gold standard people writing today, right? Jory Graham. Jory Graham is an American poet born originally in Rome. I think she might be the greatest poet writing anywhere right now. And she's extraordinary. Anything you pick up by her is difficult, but brilliant and repays attention. And I think I'm going to read Jory poem for you.
Okay.
Robert Hass, California.
Yep.
Genius. Jericho Brown. Jericho Brown is like, he's this just a not only writes about beauty, but writes about justice so incredibly well, in America in particular, but anywhere. And so I bring the 3 of those to your attention. So what I'm going to do, rather than read my own, which every poet would do, is I'm going to read a poem called 2 Paintings by Gustav Klimt by Jory Graham. 2 Paintings by Gustav Klimt. Although what glitters on the trees, row after perfect row, is merely the injustice of the world, the chips on the bark of each beech tree catching the light, the sum of these delays is the beautiful, the human beautiful, body of flaws. The dead would give anything, I'm sure, to step again onto the leaf rot, into the avenue of mottled shadows, the speckled broken skins. The dead in their sheer open parenthesis, what they wouldn't give for something to lean on that wouldn't give way. I think I would weep for the moral nature of this world, for right and wrong, like pools of shadow and light you can step in and out of, crossing this yellow beech forest, this oaken-walled, one autumn afternoon, late in the 20th century, in hollow light, in gaseous light, to receive the light and return it and stand in rows, anonymous, is a sweet secret, even the air wishes it could unlock. See how it pokes at them in little hooks, the blue air, the yellow trees. Why be afraid? They say when Klimt died suddenly, a painting still incomplete was found in his studio, a woman's body, open at its point of entry, rendered in graphic, pornographic detail, something like a scream between her legs. Slowly, feathery, he had begun to paint a delicate garment, his trademark, over this mouth of her body. The mouth of her face is genteel, bored, feigning a need for sleep. The fabric defines the surface, the story, so we are drawn to it, its blues and yellows glittering like a stand of beech trees late one afternoon in Germany in fall. It is called Buchenwald. It is 1890. In the finished painting, the garment had something to do with pleasure.
Holy cow. It's the only way I could even express it. Although I now have to get the book.
The thing that just freaks you out when you kind of realize it is this row of trees, this row of birch forest trees, is the train going on the way to the death camps.
One reference
forest
that I'm curious about, though, it said Buchenwald 1890.
I think that's when the painting was done.
So, okay.
Yeah. And again, what is covered, what is revealed, what is the story, what is the narrative? This is an earlier poem of hers. And I'm not joking when I say, like, she is a poet for the ages. She's a Rilke, a T.S. Eliot, a Wallace Stevens. She's in that category.
You know what? As soon as the show ends, I'm literally going on Amazon and buying her book.
There's very good selected poems out.
I will get it.
And so thank you for listening to it. And
no, it's remarkable. It's actually, look, there's parts of it I need to dig into, but
sure.
But I did. Let's say this: the weight of it was carried forward very well, and it, being Jewish, of course, is doubly right. So, using Klimt as effectively the metaphorical base for the poem was astounding. It's
she has two recent collections called Runaway and to 2040.
Okay.
And I think that like you're talking about, what do you learn, right? What do you learn from others? What do you learn from her book 2040 is she's assumed this tone of someone or something or some entity 100, 1,000 years into the future, when we have destroyed this planet. Like, oh, there was something here. What was it? What did they do here? What was going on? And the voice she has is so, like, beyond apocryphal. Like, it's beyond religious. It's beyond apocryphal. But that tone she has is incredible and scary as hell. But there you go. We live in scary times.
Yes, we do. All right, Paul. This show ran like 20 minutes longer than any normal show I've ever had, but I love it. This has been my favorite show, probably one of my favorite shows ever, generally.
Oh, that's great.
Well, no, you play a big part in this, and I think what I'd like to do, if you're up for it, sometime toward the end of the year, is have the three of you on, but on a panel, so you all can talk with each other too. You're very different in terms of everything you're doing. At the same time, you're all doing something significantly and interestingly, and you're all accomplished at what you're doing as well. And I think the conversation today alone with you on poetry is one of those conversations people need to hear, I guess. So I'm going to work. But the other thing I will be doing is working with Brent to clip all these three things so that we can get at least parts of it out there, and then encourage people to watch the full show. But if you're up for it, sometime toward the end of the year, and I will be in touch with you separately well before that, though. All right.
All right, man.
All right, my friend.
Pleasure to be here.
Big hug.
Take
Love
care.
you, and congrats on this too.
Take care. By the way.
See you soon. Well, okay, that was a long show, but you know what? Actually, one of the best shows, as I said, that I've ever participated in as a host or as a guest either. The conversation on writing was incredibly valuable from each of the three participants. They are also wonderful people, and really all three of them in different ways, but they're all profound intellects too. And so they're empathetic and profound, right? So heed what they say, okay? And if you're an aspiring writer, make this a Bible for how to think about at least some of the rudiments, if not some of the more advanced ways to think about writing as a craft and an art. And with that, I guess that's it for this month. We'll see you at the end of August, and we'll see what formats we have. This one was a winner, and do expect to see all three of them later on this year on a panel. And on behalf, thus, of Tara DeWow, Jeff Tanner, and Paul Sweeney, I'm Paul Greenberg. This is Rated PG, and we will see you soon.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.